Om Ajnanatimrandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmiritamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्रीकृष्णचैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hishikeshendriyatmane, Namaha Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nibritatmane, Swarga Pavargadvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha, Namah Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Kantave. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing our discussion of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and today's chapter is chapter 14. And chapter 14 discusses a very painful topic for the devotees who existed at that point in time, Yudhishthira Maharaj and his dear brothers, the Pandavas. And chapter 14 is about the disappearance of Lord Krishna, the pastime of disappearance of the Lord, the manifested pastimes. And that is the specific topic which is being discussed. But more so, as we read through the chapter, the description of the chapter is practically sharing the symptoms of a godless society, the inauspicious symptoms. There are several levels of information that are being provided in this chapter. Number one, the first level of information that one gleans is that in the days of the past, the study of the atmosphere and people were subtle, or people were actually quite developed in spiritual sciences, where they were able to understand and they were very sensitive to atmospheric changes where they could make interpretations. In fact, there's a whole body of knowledge which is a part of the Vedic sciences, which is called Nimitta Shastra. Nimitta means omen. And to study natural phenomenon, perhaps like, for example, the sudden changes in temperature, or the appearance of inauspicious events, such as certain kind of animals uh, wailing, which is, these are all considered very inauspicious. The idea was that in the days past, the kings as well as ordinary citizens, specifically the brahmanas, they were experts in being able to study phenomena that was occurring in the atmosphere, and they were able to reach conclusions on the mode which was prevalent. They were able to reach conclusions on auspiciousness versus inauspiciousness. Specifically, they were able to reach conclusions on the predominance of the mode of ignorance, or predominance of contamination due to the modes. They were able to reach very good conclusions. Now, that is being described in great detail. What is fascinating for us as residents of Matyaloka, Matyaloka is a place where death is certain. And as residents of Matyaloka in 2016, what is fascinating as we read through the translations of this chapter and the verses of this chapter is for us to see that this is practically a description of the current age. Yudhishthira Maharaj is observing inauspicious signs all around, and he is reaching certain conclusions. He's worrying because he, as an emperor, is very concerned about the well-being of the population. And he is observing certain very inauspicious phenomena and reaching conclusions based on the phenomena. But the phenomena, if you read through the translation, it shows us that this is everyday life in 2016, perhaps in the recent years, and even beyond, perhaps for the last 50 or 60 years. This is very, very, it's ordinary life. It's the order of life. Right? Perhaps for the last century. It's very, very normal for all these symptoms. So what is being seen by him as extraordinarily inauspicious during his time, the symptoms of inauspiciousness, of an event that has taken place, of the magnitude of the event is such that it has practically impacted the atmosphere. This particular phenomenon which Yudhishthira Maharaj is seeing, he is observing because of his perception and knowledge, and he is reaching certain conclusions that the Kala, the eternal time, external time, it has actually changed and it has actually worsened. The quality of time has dropped. He is reaching this conclusion, and all the symptoms that he is actually observing to determine that time has turned inauspicious are actually symptoms of day-to-day life in 2016 or even the past 100 years, be it in India or wherever, whichever country we are in. It's fascinating to see that it was considered extraordinarily inauspicious, but this is our norm. So we really can have some perception of how degraded life has become in the centuries which have followed Yudhishthira Maharaj, where at that time it was such a rare event that the observance of certain symptoms in the atmosphere was considered to be extraordinarily inauspicious, and he becomes very suspicious that all of this is indicating that some great crisis has befallen society. All of this is indicating that something has actually occurred of a magnitude which is very inauspicious. And we read through it and we will find, we're going to do it today, and we will find that this is practically a description of the current day. You don't even need to go much in terms of, you don't need to have subtle perception to observe these phenomena because it's gross, it's available, and it's well known. Okay, so let's take a few verses, and we would have perception. Then we are going to go into what is the solution. Sutta uvacha samprastite dvarakayam jishnau bandudidrakshayam gyatum cha punya shlokasya krishnasya cha vishestitam. Sri Sutta Goswami said, Arjuna went to Dwaraka to see Lord Sri Krishna and other friends, and also to learn from the Lord of his next activities. Vyatitaha katichin mashas tadanaya tato Arjuna dadarshagora rupani nimittani kurudvaha. A few months passed and Arjuna did not return. Maharaj Yudhishthira then began to observe some inauspicious omens which were fearful in themselves. Kalasya cha gatim raudram viparyastatu dharminaha papiyashim nranam vartam krodaloban nutatmanam. He saw that the direction of eternal time had changed, and this was very fearful. There were disruptions in the seasonal regularities. Now everybody knows, a few days back it was almost 60 degrees. The day before it was freezing. Now it's again freezing. So we don't really need to be perceptive at a subtle level, but this was observed as being extraordinarily inauspicious. Climate change of a certain kind was observed to be extraordinarily inauspicious. It was a rare event at the time of Maharaj Yudhishthira. But now, whatever he's written here is the norm. It's everyday occurrence. There were disruptions in the seasonal regularities. The people in general had become very greedy, angry, and deceitful. and he saw that they were adopting foul means of livelihood. I found it very amusing, actually, to be sorry. You know, to be honest, it was very amusing for me to read that this was observed as such a rare event, a calamitous event, and he reached conclusions. And it's norm. It is a norm now. Jihma prayam dyavartam satyamishram cha sauhridam pitramatra suhridda bhratra dampatinam cha kalkanam. All ordinary transactions and dealings became polluted with cheating, even between friends. And in familial affairs, there was always misunderstanding between fathers, mothers, and sons, between well-wishers and between brothers. Even between husband and wife, there was always strain and quarrel. Nimittani atyarishtani kale tva anugatenanam lobadi adharma prakritim drishtvo chunajam nipah. In course of time, it came to pass that people in general became accustomed to greed, anger, pride, etc. Maharaj Yudhishthira, observing all these omens, spoke to his younger brother. Yudhishthira uvacha sampresthito dvarakayam jishnurbandu didrakshaya gyatum cha punya shlokasya krishnasya cha vishestitam. Maharaj Yudhishthira said to his younger brother Bhimasena, I sent Arjuna to Dwaraka to meet his friends and to learn from the personality of Godhead Krishna of his program of work. Gataha saptadunamasa bhimasena tavanujaha nayati kasya vahetor naham vedeham madhyasa. Since he departed, 7 months have passed, yet he has not returned. I do not know factually how things are going there. Apideva rishit nadishtah sakaloyam upastitah yadatmano ningam akridam bhagavan utsishtati. Is he going to quit his earthly pastimes, as Devarishi Narada indicated? Has the time already arrived? Yasmannaha sampado rajyam daraha pranaha kulam prajaha asan saptana vijayo lokasyayat anugrahat. From him only all are kingly opulence, good wives, lives, progeny, control over subjects, victory over our enemies, and future accommodation in higher planets have become possible. All this is due to his costless mercy upon us. Pashyopatan naravyagrahat divyan bauman sadaihikan darunan samsato durad bayam no buddhimohanam. Just see, O man with a tiger's strength, how many miseries due to celestial influences, earthly reactions, and bodily pains, all very dangerous in themselves, are foreboding danger in the near future by deluding our intelligence. Urvakshi bahavo mahyam sfuranti anga punah punah vepatuschapi hridaye aradashyanti vipriyam. The left side of my body, my thighs, arms, and eyes are all quivering again and again. I'm having hot palpitations due to fear. All this indicates undesirable happenings. Shivai shodyantam adityam abhirauti analananam mam angasare me yoyam abhirebati abhiravat. Just see, O Bhima, how the she-jackal cries at the rising sun and vomits fire, and how the dog barks at me fearlessly. So these are all observances of nimitta, omens, where the jackal, it's considered to be very inauspicious to hear the howling, especially during the nights, in terms of certain nights. And there are shastric injunctions which have listed several of these omens, and then they give you directions saying that if you observe this, This is the outcome. So he is observing all of this happening. And as a consequence, he is very worried that something has transpired which he is not aware of. But he remembers that Sri Narad Muni had already predicted that the Lord would perform his pastime of disappearance, and the disappearance pastime of the Lord would occur, and the Yadus would also perish. So Sri Narad Muni had predicted all of that. And since he had already predicted, Yudhishthira Maharaj was reaching conclusions that all this inauspiciousness that is being observed and Arjuna's absence, he has not come back yet. All of this indicates that Krishna has departed. Sastaha kurbanti mam savyam dakshinam pasavo pare vaham cha purusho vyagraha lakshaye rudatu mama. O Bhimasena, tiger amongst men, now useful animals like cows are passing me on my left side, and lower animals like the asses are circumambulating me. My horses appear to weep upon seeing me. There were some real changes. There were real atmospheric changes, and animals were being influenced, and those animals themselves are showing symptoms of the change in the quality of time. Right? Change in the quality of time. This is not just particular or relegated only to the Vedic realm. The farmers in America, perhaps in the West, 200 years back, were also quite experts in certain ways of being able to read symptoms of changes in the atmosphere, and for them to be able to predict the presence of unwanted beings, without, they can't see the presence of unwanted beings, people with what do you call it, malicious intent, who cannot be seen. There could be subtle entities, but they could observe changes in the farm and animals. They could observe changes in the crops. They could observe changes amongst, even in foodstuff, the spoiling of milk of certain kind. All of this is considered to be very inauspicious. They could observe, and there are many accounts of farmers, even in America, perhaps the West in certain places, reaching conclusions about the presence of inauspicious entities in and around. So this is not just specific to the Vedic times. This is a part of the culture that existed around the world, where many observations and the gathering of information was done at a subtle level. In other words, people were sensitive at a subtle level, and as a consequence, there was a lot of perception of reaching conclusions based on observations. Nowadays, it may seem completely out of place if someone were to make a remark of this kind, especially someone who has the capacity to rule the entire planet, someone who is considered to be the emperor. If he were to be making these comments, it would be considered completely out of place. But there is context here. The context is that there was dependence in the atmosphere. There were shastras which were relegated to the study of omens. So what we're looking at right now is the application of that shastra by Yudhishthira Maharaj to reach certain conclusions. And we're extending it, saying that this is not just specific to the Vedic times. Vedic influence had extended beyond the borders, and as a consequence, you find instances throughout the world where people in the rural side and who are still living somewhat simplistic lifestyles, who are somewhat closer to nature, they have the ability, and they still have certain perceptions. They reach certain conclusions based on changes. Mrityudutah kapatoyam ullukah kampayan manah pratyulukascha kuhvaner vishwam vai shunyam ichatah. Just see, this pigeon is like a messenger of death. The shirks of the owls and their rival crows make my heart tremble. It appears that they want to make a void of the whole universe. Dhumradashah paridyaha kampate buhu sahadribihi nirgatascha maham stata sakam cha stanayutnubihi. Just see how the smoke encircles the sky. It appears that the earth and the mountains are throbbing. Just hear the cloudless thunder and see the bolts from the blue. Vayurvati karasparsho rajasa vishtrajam stamah asargavashyanti jaladam bibatsam eva sarvatah. The wind blows violently, blasting dust everywhere and creating darkness. Clouds are raining everywhere with bloody disasters. Suryam hatapravam pashya grahamardam mito divi Sashankuler Bhutaganer Jwalite Varodasi. The rays of the sun are declining and the stars appear to be fighting amongst themselves. Confused living entities appear to be ablaze and weeping. Nadyo Nadashchakshubitah Saramsi cha mamam manamsi cha Najwalati Agnir Ajyena Kaloyam Kim Vidasyati. Rivers, tributaries, ponds, reservoirs, and the mind are all perturbed. Butter no longer ignites fire. What is this extraordinary time? What is going to happen? Now, this is again an observation. Butter no longer ignites fire, something which is very natural in its propensity to be able to burn through, is not igniting. And this is not uncommon. Whenever there is interference during the yajna of entities who can interfere while you perform yajnas, and you can have a ghee pot ready for you to be able to offer. It's liquid ghee. It could be summer. And you would have interference if you're performing yajna from entities who are not meant to interfere at that point in time, if you do not have a place which is completely clean, and if you have not prepared well for the yajna, and then the ingredients themselves are not proper. We will notice that even in summer, ghee which is melted and it is liquefied during the process of fire sacrifice can solidify. So it has the ability to not ignite the fire. Or the fire, the quality of fire while performing yajna itself could be very diminished, and you could have the fire being extinguished quite easily. So all of these are very much a part of being able to observe and understand whether there is purity in the performance. There's also the ability to understand if the atmosphere is contaminated in any way, and to also determine if there is any interference. This is a part of the observations that are being made even in rituals that are being done. You see, sometimes there could be some inauspiciousness which occurs during an auspicious event. And in such situations, one has to be very clear that there's something which is not proper. So we have to be cognizant of it, which is a normal conclusion that we can all reach, that when everything is going on for the celebration of, let's say an important event, a festival of any kind, and then if there were to be any kind of inauspiciousness that occurs, it is to be understood that there was something improper which was going on. So those days, the king was extraordinarily proper in his administration. Many kings those days were Rajarishis. Yudhishthira Maharaj was a Rajarishi. Internally, his identity was completely fixed in being a servant of Krishna. Externally, he was executing the position of being kingdom. Externally, he was executing his position of being a king, managing the kingdom. Internally, he was perfectly situated as a servant of Krishna. So he was a Rajarishi, and he had the ability to practically understand what was duty, and he was able to arrange the kingdom and also make arrangements for all the four varnas, and even those who are outside of the varnas, for them to be able to make progress eventually. And when someone as highly conscious as he observes inauspiciousness occurring, because this was his sacrifice, managing the kingdom, he's seeing so many different inauspicious happenings, then that becomes a situation which is of great worry, great concern. Because his caliber of kings had the ability to monitor and transform the consciousness of their subjects because of their level of purity. You see, they used to contribute positively to the karmic reactions of the subjects purely because the subjects were being ruled by a very just, Krishna conscious king. So as a consequence, he was contributing positively to the consciousness of people who are under him. Because it works both ways. In leadership, it works both ways, that people who are managed will contribute to the consciousness of the leader. Similarly, the leader will contribute to the people who are being managed. This was observed during the time of Srila Prabhupada as well. As long as Srila Prabhupada was on the planet, this was 1977, things used to be so smooth. There used to be such amazing level of preaching which was going on, amazing level, where every discussion amongst the managers and so on was all about how to expand the Krishna conscious movement in different ways. How do you preach? What was the strategy? And so on and so forth. We had temples, we had palaces, we had castles, we had all kinds of property, and it was very opulent around the world. And there was plenty available. Each bank account of most of the temples had $1 million. They had $1 million. There was no poverty in the movement, as it was seen in recent times. Even now, there was no such thing as struggling to collect funds to expand the movement. There was no such thing as that. When Prabhupada was on the planet and he was in charge of the movement, there was no question of struggle for funds, which was inordinate. In other words, which was happening for a prolonged period of time. There was struggle, but it was for the purpose of purification. It was not so much because of the fact that the funds themselves were not fully available. So the situation used to be that devotees used to undergo austerity based on the orders of Srila Prabhupada. The austerity itself used to slowly manifest itself as they strived hard to fulfill Prabhupada's words. Automatically, the mission used to move forward, and all kinds of opulences, all kinds of facilities were made available. Because Mahaprabhu made a mention, he made it very clear that my name would spread in every village, in every town and village, it would spread. So anyone who takes up Mahaprabhu's mission on his shoulders is going to be empowered to be able to execute and to move forward. So in that situation, when Srila Prabhupada was here on the planet, there was absolutely no dearth of resources for all temples. We remember Gitanagari had, I think, $1 million. We could almost say that there were millions of dollars in the bank accounts of these temples. Now, when a leader such as Srila Prabhupada, someone who was so powerful, when he was personally present on the planet and he was managing, his proficiency and his power and his potency was running the movement. The movement was dependent on the potency of Srila Prabhupada. Okay, it's very significant to understand. It was dependent on the potency of Srila Prabhupada. The moment he stepped away, or rather, Srila Prabhupada disappeared, there were chaos. Why were they chaos? There were chaos, there were inauspicious symptoms, everything collapsed practically in a few years. It's a very young movement, it's a young organization. These, you can say, are growing pains, but it's very significant to note that there was a dramatic change when Srila Prabhupada left the planet. Dramatic. Everything practically just fell apart, it had to be rebuilt, and it took over 15 years, 20 years just to get back to normal operations. Why? Because that vacuum of purity was created. Srila Prabhupada's departure practically took away the potency, the whole, the support system which was there, because it was his potency that was running the movement at the time. So until people eventually came back to understanding the purpose of the movement, then understanding the intentions of Srila Prabhupada, then things slowly started coming back to normal. Okay, so it's not a big surprise that there is so much confusion. There's so much confusion when the Lord departs. Right? When Krishna, after he departs and he is performing his disappearance pastime, there is so much confusion which is going on the planet, and these are the observances of Yudhishthira Maharaj. It is not a surprise whatsoever. Na pibanti stanam vatsam na dukhyanti cha matarah rudanti ashrumukha gavo na hrishtyanti rishabha vraje. The calves do not suck the teats of the cows, nor do the cows give milk. They are standing, crying, tears in their eyes, and the bulls take no pleasure in the pasturing grounds. Everything is unnatural. Daivatani uradanti vasvidanti uchchalanti cha ime jana padagramaha purodhyana karashramaha brashtashriho niranananandaha kim agam darshayantinah. The deities seem to be crying in the temple, lamenting and perspiring. They seem about to leave. All these cities, villages, towns, gardens, mines, and hermitages are now devoid of beauty and bereft of all happiness. I do not know what sort of calamities are now awaiting us. Now, the deities in our temples, and any temple, they are very, very symptomatic in terms of the consciousness in the congregation and also the prevalence of consciousness in the visitors and the following of rules, regulations, the vidhi, which is there to maintain them. There were times when Srila Prabhupada, he had the ability practically to come in touch with the intentions of the deities. He could see very clearly as to what was happening and what wasn't happening because of his high level of consciousness. He used to enter into some temples and he used to practically smile at the caretakers of the deities, the priests, the pujaris, the management, because he would recognize that everything was going on very, very well. And then in some cases, in some temples, he would enter and he would immediately begin chastising the management, chastising the pujaris. And this was like when he was visiting different temples. He would begin questioning as to why services were not being performed. No one would have told him anything. It was just merely by seeing the deities and being able to receive information from the deities, Srila Prabhupada would begin chastising. It is also being said here that it's a calamitous situation, that deities could leave. Deities can leave. Just as much as we install deities, the Pranapati Stapana ceremony allows for the installation of deities, and then there's worship. When the deities become upset, they can leave. And when they leave, they're chaos. They're chaos. There's chaos in the community, there's chaos in the temple. It would be very chaotic if the deities were to leave after they come in. That's why deity worship is a two-way street where it's very potent in terms of being able to make advancement. But then there are also consequences if things are not managed and then things are not taken care of in certain ways. Okay, and there are umpteen number of examples of that, umpteen number of examples of the deities being disturbed. It takes a lot of consciousness, or rather a higher level of perception of what is right and what is wrong, specifically when deities are concerned. In the 10th century, there was this invasion of the Mughals. I think it was Malik Kafur. I think it was just, yeah, it was the invasion of the Mughals, the Muslims, right down, and they came all the way down to the Srirangam temple in southern India. And news had already reached the devotees, the Vaishnavas, that there's going to be an invasion. So as a reactive measure, as a proactive measure, they took a decision and they moved. They first built a wall in front of the deity to hide the deity from the invasions. And then certain other deities who could be transported, they transported them to Karnataka at that time. And then what they also did was they dug a hole and they buried some deities. So there were many, many calamitous situations that were brought forth by these invasions in India. And it has its natural repercussions for centuries in the lives of those who are involved. Natural repercussions. And these deities themselves were buried to protect them because they could, because of their complete lack of knowledge, being in very tamasic ignorance, they would even destroy the deities, which is the case with most of the temples in Vrindavan went through that kind of pain during Aurangzeb's time. Where our deities were hidden, temples were broken, and the acharyas, they were scattered here and there, so there was no possibility of being able to cultivate devotees. There were very difficult times through which we have passed. So the point which I'm trying to make here is that the deities are a very important indicator of how the deities are and how they have the ability to transform the community, transform the surroundings, and transform, wherever they are. So it's very powerful. So that's being spoken here, where he is observing and he is feeling very bad that the deities themselves are indicating. So he was of a high he was a very highly qualified devotee, Vaishnava, Yudhishthira Maharaj. He had such clear perception that the deities themselves were exhibiting certain signs indicating that they were unhappy. Manyeter mahotpater nunam bhagavatah padaihi ananya purusha shribir hinabur hata sobhaga. I think that all these earthly disturbances indicate some greater loss to the good fortune of the world. The world was fortunate to have been marked with the footprints of the lotus feet of the Lord. These signs indicate that this will no longer be. Iti chintayatastasya drishtarishtena chetasha rajnyaha pratagyamat brahman yadupuryah kapidvajaha. O Brahmana Shaunaka, while Maharaj Yudhishthira, observing the inauspicious signs on the earth at that time, was thus thinking to himself, Arjuna came back from the city of the Yadus. So Arjuna returns from Dwaraka. Tam padayor nipatitam ayata purvam aturam ado vadanam abindum shrijantam nayanabjoho. When he bowed at his feet, the king saw that his dejection was unprecedented. His head was down and tears glided from his lotus eyes. Vilokyo hridayo vichayam anujam nripaha prachati smak sukran madhye samsmaran naraderitam. Seeing Arjuna pale due to heartfelt anxieties, the king, remembering the indications of the sage Narada, questioned him in the midst of friends. Yudhishthira vacha kachit anartha puryam naha swajanaha sukham asate madhuboja dasaraharha satvatandaka vrishnayaha. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, My dear brother, please tell me whether our friends and relatives such as Madhu, Boja, Dasarha, Arha, Shatvata, Andaka, and members of the Yadu family are all passing their days in happiness. Suro mata maha kachit swasti aste vatas marishaha matulaha sanujaha kachit kushali anakadundubihi. Is my respectable grandfather Surasena in a happy mood, and are my maternal uncle Vasudeva and his younger brothers all doing well. Saptaswasarastat matulanyah sahatmajaha asate sashnushaha kshemam devaki pramukkaha swayam. His 7 wives, headed by Devaki, are all sisters. Are they and their sons and daughters-in-law all happy? Kachid rajahuko jivati asatputro chanujaha hridikaha sashuto kruro jayanta gadasaranaha asate kushalam kachid echa shatrujit adayah kachid aste sukam ramo bhagavan satvatam prabhu. Or Ugrasena, whose son was the mischievous Kamsa, and his younger brother still living? Or Hridika and his son Kritavarma happy? Or Akrura, Jayanta, Gada, Sharana, and Satrajit all happy? How is Balarama, the personality of Godhead and the protector of devotees? Pradyumnaha sarva vrishninam sukanaste maharatah gambhirarayo aniruddho vardate bhagavanutah. How is Pradyumna, the great general of the Vrishni family? Is he happy? And is Aniruddha, the plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead, faring well? Shushenas charudeshnascha sambo jambavati sutah anye chakashni pravaraha saputra rishabhadhyayaha. Or all the chieftain sons of Lord Krishna, such as Susena, Charudeshna, Samba, the son of Jambavati, and Rishabha, along with their sons, all doing well? Tatevanucharah saurehe Shutadevodvadyayaha Sunandananda Sheshanaya Gachanye Sattvatar Rishabha Api Swasti Asate Sarve Ramakrishna Bhujashrayah Api Smaranti Kushalam Asmakam but the Sauhurdaha, also Shrutadeva, Uddhava, and others, Nanda, Sunanda, and other leaders of liberated souls who are constant companions of the Lord are protected by Lord Balarama and Krishna. Are they all doing well in their respective functions? Do they, who are all eternally bound in friendship with us, remember our welfare? Bhagavan api Govindo Brahmanyo Bhaktavatsalah Kachit Pure Sudarmayam Sukhamaste Suhritah is Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gives pleasure to the cows, the senses, and the Brahmanas, who is very affectionate towards his devotees, enjoying the pious assembly at Dwaraka Puri, surrounded by friends. Mangalaya Chalokanam Shemaya Chabavaya Cha Aste Yadu Kulambodav Adhyonanta Sakapuman Yad Bahudanda Guptayam Swapuryam Yadavorchataha Kridanti Paramanandam Maha Paurishika Eva Paurushika Eva, the original personality of Godhead, the enjoyer, and Balarama, the primeval Lord Ananta, are staying in the ocean of the Yadu dynasty for the welfare, protection, and general progress of the entire universe. And the members of the Yadu dynasty, being protected by the arms of the Lord, are enjoying life like the residents of the spiritual sky. Yat padashashrushana mukya karmana satyadayo dvyasta sahasra yoshitah nirjitya sankhetra jasam stadiyashisho haranti vajrayuda vallabhochita. Simply by administering comforts at the lotus feet of the Lord, which is the most important of all services, the queens at Dwaraka, headed by Satyabhama, induce the Lord to conquer the demigods. Thus, the queens enjoy things which are prerogatives of the wives of the controller of thunderbolts. Yad bahu dandabhyudayana yadu pravirahi akutobayamuhu adikramanti angribir ahritam balat sabam sudarmam surasatmochitam. The great heroes of the Yadu dynasty, being protected by the arms of Lord Sri Krishna, always remain fearless in every respect, and therefore their feet trample over the Sudharma assembly house, which is the best demigods deserved, but which was taken away from them. Kachite namayam tat brashtateja vibhasi me alabdamano vagyatah kim va tata chiroshitaha. My brother Arjuna, please tell me whether your health is all right. You appear to have lost your bodily luster. Is this due to others disrespecting and neglecting you because of your long stay at Dwaraka? Yudhishthira Maharaj, he's so sensitive. He's saying you stayed for so long. Perhaps you overstayed. He is having this hope against hope. Perhaps you overstayed, and because you overstayed, they didn't treat you well. Is this the reason why you have lost your bodily luster? Because they don't disrespect you. It is like a guest who perhaps is insensitive to the host, overstays his welcome, and that would make someone who is extraordinarily proud and I would say distinguished, such as Arjuna, as a Kshatriya king, he could feel quite out of place if he were to be insulted due to his overstaying. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is slowly trying to see, maybe I'm wrong, maybe nothing has happened, maybe it is just Arjuna's misfortune that he looks the way he is. Kacchinnabhihito bhavaihi sabdadibir amangalaihi nadattam uktam artibhyah asayayat pratishrutam. Has someone addressed you with unfriendly words or threatened you? Could you not give charity to one who asked? Or could you not keep your promise to someone? All of these are causes of misfortune for a Kshatriya. So all of these questions are being raised. Kachitvam brahmanam balam Gam vraddam roginam striyam Sharano Pashchatam Sattvam Natyakshih Sharana Pradaha. You're always the protector of the deserving living beings, such as brahmanas, children, cows, women, and the diseased. Could you not give them protection when they approached you for shelter? So now he's questioning him, saying, maybe you failed in your duty. Brahmanas, look at the personalities who should be protected. Brahmanas, children, cows, women, and the diseased. All of them should be protected. And whenever there's a violation, the one who is supposed to protect them and one who is in a leadership position would lose their luster. And Yudhishthira Maharaj is indicating that Arjuna, perhaps you look this way because you were not able to offer protection to those whom you are supposed to protect. Kachit tvam nagamo gamyam vasat kratam striyam parajito vatabhavan nottomer nasamaihi patihi. Have you contacted a woman of impeachable character, or have you not properly treated a deserving woman, or have you been defeated on the way by someone who is inferior or equal to you? Have you contacted a woman of impeachable character? Highly inauspicious. These days it's the norm in reality to come and touch. It is the norm. See, contacted, he's practically saying, have you met someone? These days it is a norm because of the extraordinary poor level of consciousness. It would not be a big surprise that there are so many events, and there are so many different, I would say, opportunities for one to lose their bearing, for them to lose their luster, for them to practically become devoid of their spiritual luster and well-being. Right. So completely is the norm today, and he's asking him. He's asking him whether there was any such incident, which means not only because Arjuna was of such a high character, also the simple fact that it was a rarity. Moral fall downs were a rarity, such a rarity that Yudhishthira Maharaj is raising this. Apisvitparya bhunktas tvam sambojyan vidabalakan jugupshitam karma kinchit kratavan nayat akshamam. Have you not taken care of old men and boys who deserve to dine with you? Have you left them and taken your meals alone? Have you committed some unpardonable mistake which is considered to be abominable? So again, now you're coming from brahmanas, women, diseased, children, infirm, and then also old men. Now he's going into the different categories of people who ought to have been taken care of. Kachit prestat menat hridayenat bandunam shunyos mirhaito nityam manyaset tenyatanaruk. Or is it that you are feeling empty for all time because you might have lost your most intimate friend, Lord Krishna? Oh, my brother Arjuna, I can think of no other reason for you becoming so dejected. Finally, instead of uttering the inauspicious words of the disappearance of the Lord, not wanting to bring about such a calamitous statement, Yudhishthira Maharaj finally is asking him, has that happened? Because when someone is inquiring about a negative event, they are praying very heavily, they are praying that such an event should not have occurred. And as a consequence, they ask whether an event has occurred of that kind. At the very end, they try to eliminate all kinds of possibilities. So what is very important about today's chapter is not so much the calamitous events, not so much the symptoms that were being observed by Yudhishthira Maharaj, not so much the grief which Sri Arjuna was experiencing, because all of this is known, because the events such as Krishna departing, winding up his manifested pastimes in certain ways, is a major event. So there's no question that there would be such an auspiciousness. The question that arises is that the symptoms that we observe in day-to-day life today, in 2016, these are extraordinarily inauspicious symptoms. You can practically attest that our own day-to-day life is filled with phenomenon, and these are daily occurrences, be it weather, be it so many different inauspicious events all around us, almost as if it's very telling that we are in a very inauspicious age, which is the truth, where it's very difficult to make progress. So where is our Krishna? Where is our Krishna? Where exactly is Krishna, where we can bring forth a revolution, we can bring forth auspiciousness back to the planet? Srila Prabhupada writes about it in the first canto again. We have already done that, 5th chapter, verse 11, 1.5.11, where the verse itself is declaring very clearly. We can just read that. Just one moment. I just want to read that. Yes. This is it's actually 1.5.11. We have read this, but I want to read it again. It's very contextual. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abadvati api namani anantasyesho nikitani yat shinvanti gayanti grananti sadavaha. Translation. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. This is a very, very, very powerful statement where it talks about a revolution. And who was heading that revolution? Mahaprabhu inaugurated the revolution 500 years back. He inaugurated the revolution of the precepts of Srimad Bhagavatam. His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada took over the responsibility of being able to translate the Srimad Bhagavatam to bring about this revolution into English. And then it was translated into 55 other languages. And it is all over the world. Now you have copies of Srimad Bhagavatam causing revolution. So this is a revolution which has been caused in many ways, where pure consciousness, which is being permeated by the Srimad Bhagavatam, is practically in every corner of the world in different languages, making it very accessible. And even though it might be imperfectly composed in terms of translations and so on and so forth, because the focus was more in terms of delivering the essence, the very presence of the subject matter, which is completely free from matter, completely free from any form of inferior influence, that presence itself is enough to cause a revolutionary change. This was the mission of Srila Prabhupada. That is the reason why he was waiting and he was pressing forward to wanting to leave India once his work on, he had completed the volumes on Srimad Bhagavatam, the first few volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. Once that was ready and it was printed, he was ready to travel. And he admits in the purport, in this particular verse, 1.5.11, saying that my own purports, it may not be easy for people to understand of this age. But he says, because the subject matter is so transcendental, whoever comes in touch with my book, whoever comes in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam, will have the ability to take advantage, even though they may not fully understand the writings. The example that he gives in 1.5.11 is very poignant. He talks about the fact that when there is a fire and when two people who are residing next to each other, the neighbor's house catches fire and they don't know how to speak to each other because they don't know the language. Perhaps they don't understand each other because of language differences. But then in the event of a fire, they're all able to communicate because they all understand what is the essence of that needs to be done, and they step out. In a similar fashion, one who is able to absorb the Srimad Bhagavatam and be able to implement the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the lives of others, and the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam is to be able to glorify the names. Nama Sankirtan and chanting of the holy names is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam in the beginning, in the middle, and toward the end. If you're able to implement that, you are implementing Srimad Bhagavatam. That message is very clear. The language of the holy names and the kirtan is very clear. One does not need to be a Sanskrit scholar, neither does the purport and the translations and so on in different languages have to be grammatically perfect. There's no necessity. The sum and substance and the essence of the purports of Srimad Bhagavatam is to glorify the holy names. That being done would automatically cause a revolution. Now, that is the message. So this inauspiciousness that is being observed as everyday phenomena can only be countered by Srimad Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam is meant to cause a revolution in the hearts of living entities. So those of us who have taken up book distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam, many of you are engaging in book distribution, which is glorious. Do not make assumptions on how you are going to be used. We are way down in the stream in Mahaprabhu's plan to be able to implement his mission. So what we do is we simply follow instructions of being able to distribute this literature. Distribute it, place it in different homes. That in itself is sufficient. If you do not have a copy, please do buy a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's, those of you who are local, you can contact the local temple devotees. They would be more than happy to deliver a copy. If you're not local, go to krishna.com. There are different, krishna.com has the Srimad Bhagavatam. Please do place your order, because it's very, very important for you to have this at home, because as you have this literature in the book form at home, it will cause a revolution in the hearts of the personalities who are in the house. So it's very critical for us to come to terms with the fact that this revolution is Srimad Bhagavatam's revolution. And the essence of the revolution is the holy names. The extent to which we seriously practice the chanting of the holy names, to that extent we will have the ability to be able to offer help to others and to help ourselves. So it's very important that even if you are Sankirtan devotee, even if you are stepping out and dealing with others on the road, first and foremost, we'll have to very sincerely practice the precept of Srimad Bhagavatam. Appreciate the holy names, serve the holy names in different ways. That in itself would be empowerment for us to be able to, deal with the needs of others. Okay, so we will end here. So 1.5.11 is a critical verse which practically says how the world is going to be transformed from this great level of inauspiciousness to the auspicious state. The heralding of a new era practically means that the world has to experience Satya Yuga. The world has to experience Satya Yuga for everybody to move forward. The Satya Yuga revolution is going to be brought about by Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is why Srimad Bhagavatam, amongst all the literatures, is most potent and extraordinarily important in its implementation, the message. And the essence of the message of Srimad Bhagavatam is glorification of the holy names. I'll stop here and we'll see if we can take questions. Any questions so far? Okay, there are no questions, so I'm going to give a couple of minutes to see if any questions come by. If not, we will end the session. I am starting a new series of classes on Friday, which is tomorrow. We had 4 sessions, and these were on removing obstacles. So we went from defining obstacles to be able to offer strategy to be adopted internally, to be adopted externally in terms of removing external obstacles, and also to be able to have a certain culture so that we can be free of obstacles in being able to execute our sadhana. The next series, which is going to begin tomorrow, will be on the topic of surrender. So the 6 different types of surrender and the stages of surrender would be discussed over 6 sessions. So we will try and highlight, the different topics as we go along. This will also happen on the Friday evening program, and you will notice where this is going to be conducted. the address would also be put out. So just feel free to stop by if you want to attend in person, or just you always can participate online. So we will again be beginning a new set of classes tomorrow. Okay, there are no more questions, so I would end the session here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai.